The Big Issue. Breaking down the issues that matter.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Leadership Podcast. It is yet another edition of The Big Issue. I am your regular host. George Agba is my name, and as usual, I'm in the studio here with our in-house analyst, Silas Ezebu and Chibuzo Ukaibe.
Thank you.
Together, we'll be taking you on the big issue of the day, which is the late Sylvester Oromoni and consequence of school bullying. And it was former United States President Abraham Lincoln who sent a tall order to his son's headmaster, demanding that his son should be taught early that the bullies are always the easiest to lick. By giving an example of bullies, Abraham Lincoln demonstrated that he was aware that such situation will happen to his son in school. But in Nigeria, what ordinarily would have been mere bullying now has a grave consequence. It has now become barbaric, gruesome, and savagery, and its negative impact on the social environment is the result of the assault that led to the death of 12-year-old Sylvester Oromoni at Dowen College Lekki, Lagos. The late Oromoni passed away after alleged assault by some students of the school who wanted to initiate him into their cult. According to the late student, had posted on microblog site Twitter narrating how Sylvester was battered on 26 November at the school before he eventually died on November 30 this year. Well, the tragic story of the late Master Oromoni, a student of Dowen College in Lekki, who passed away after being battered by his colleagues, has brought to the menace of bullying in schools, Silas. You see, but Nigerians are now wondering, why did it have to take the death of the late Oromoni for the authorities, both the school and the government, to now know that bullying has become something else in school, and it's affecting the school environment negatively? Because ordinarily, we only hear of this particular incident because it led to the death of the victim. But you can imagine other children that would have been passing through all these things, these pains, in silence, and then nothing happens. And sometimes they become criminals because if you pass through this kind of situation, you are making you a hardened criminal. So Silas, what do you have to say about it?
It's a hardened criminal, might be going a bit.
No, but it's possible.
As
I'm not lying.
I'm not saying you're lying, but not everybody that goes to becomes a hardened that way.
After passing through this kind of,
and don't have to be crazy. I have to commit a crime to get criminal. But there's something with Nigeria. If something does not look to death or something very drastic, and we just pretend that it's not happening, and I'll swallow it up until it happens and comes to the fore that. In the previous program, I remember talking about the Lokoja Canal, Lokoja Bija Road. It was so bad until kid one prominent politician from Kogi State who was traveling home, and government started building a project. So from Bowen, this is a school, not for the common people. If you look at the fees they pay, it's for those who have means that go to that college. And I think it's owned by former Minister of Education, former Adara. Okay, so that building has been going on in schools. We all went through it. If you ever went to a public school, even private, even day schools, who went through bullying on different levels, and it has its advantages anyway. Sometimes, if it's on a mind level, as the way of kind of making you know that you're not going to other assessment, that you need to be toughened a bit. so that even if you go to school and go to the highest place, you can withstand some. But it's not for the students to be abused. So that's the students in our own time. So they did to make you work more, put some difficult challenges ahead of you. It was that was geared towards making you leave your mother's absence and become a bit independent. Some of us who went for sporting activities far away from home, because we are in such a special situation, we could to mock the difficulties of traveling and staying without the comfort of the home and all those sort of. But what is happening here is criminal. People are being abused, beaten, molested, sometimes sexually, sometimes theft. One of my former guys, one of my bosses, he took his son to school one day. The next day, everything he dropped for the child, everything was stolen. And left, even the boy's uniform, everything was stripped naked. So that is where it comes in. So when I'm saying that everything has a advantage, everything has advantage. Sometimes it may have a good thing, but this what is happening here is totally unacceptable.
I can disagree with you that in this particular case,
In this case, there's no good thing about it. I'm not saying general, in general.
Other ways of molding a child in school. Actually, even the absence, the distance away from home, so they say no.
They're not.
To
Now
make
they're
you
talking
become independent. Not to make you a criminal.
not
So I think
Of course,
This
if
one will
I
become a
pass
criminal.
if I pass through this kind of situation where I am being treated, subjected to this kind of hard situation, I will be emboldened in heart.
Yes.
And of course, it will be
That
easier
doesn't
for me
mean-
to be conscripted into one criminal gang, and I will play very well because I'm now.
I don't.
Yes, I'm using your people.
Anyway,
well, it depends. It rubs off on people differently. Some people go through as bullies, as people who are bullied. Some people go through that experience wanting to overcompensate, and then they, or naturally, pushes an individual to either side of the extreme.
Yes.
There's the way it impacts A, like even from the way it impacts B, it impacts A in such a way that he becomes an extremist.
Yes.
And it becomes, excessively aggressive. Then on the other hand, it shrinks one's confidence and self-confidence that he becomes, So it depends on how some other factors might determine how that particular individual, comes out of that experience. But clearly, bullying, like Mr. Silas did say, is something. It's I don't want to say part of human nature, but it's something that has always been there. It has always been there. Not necessarily.
I think people are
It's not necessarily.
most people say sometimes you even see where they will tell you, they will even show you why human behavior is like that. And sometimes some people have even linked it to our zodiac signs. Because sometimes they will say you the zodiac signs who are the bullies. So it's in human nature.
No,
It becomes criminal like
it
this.
is
Terrible, barbaric,
But we are in a period where
gory.
the world over, the effect of bullying appears to have been much more negative than in the positive. That is the period we are in.
Yes.
In this time of the discourse on this issue. Not just Nigeria, even abroad became a very serious issue. The US is a very big issue in the US, where you see children bully people, and I think that is where Mr. George's assertion plays in, because we see a counter reaction from students who are bullied, who go back home, arm themselves, come back to school, and as a response to that kind of, so it is people. Some people are in that spectrum. Others too shrink out of relevance.
So come out and become overprotective for that people who are being bullied.
Exactly.
And rest of people who, because of they went to bullying, when they became something, they make sure that where they are, they don't allow such a thing to happen because they have gone through it. They know the experience.
Bottom line,
And they can also, pinpoint when somebody is being bullied. But many people who are bullied don't say they are being bullied.
he leaves his scar. He leaves his scar in mind, of whoever has to go through that kind of deplorable experience. But it is really unfortunate that somebody had to die before this conversation has to come the way it is coming now. It's not as if it's not been there. And if you listen to the story of the Oromoni family, how this whole thing played out, it's amazing that the school authorities are not perhaps being up to speed on what they ought to be. because I can imagine that if you have a school like that complaints have been made over time about certain individuals and their tendencies, I would expect that the school authority would have ought to have done much more
Putting measures
than
to
what
check
they've done
against
in
some
this case.
kind of barbaric.
Perhaps they just waved it off and as one of those things.
Or possibly look at the children involved and thought that the parents are very well connected and they don't want to lose their customers, their clients.
Very deplorable.
That's
a possibility.
In public schools, those kind of things are there because you are just serving the public. But these people are also looking at their business angle of it. If they expect this number of people because of this kind of thing, they know how much people bring to the table.
Agree with you,
so it's wrong.
I agree with you. Because see, there's also a case of this one Keren Hakuch, a 14-year-old boarding student in Premier Academy in Lugbe, Abuja, who was allegedly raped and she subsequently died. To let you understand that this thing had been.
You know that case. That one now it's kind of sex abuse from a teacher, according to the allegation. So I wouldn't put it in the same. It's children have suffered. Children have suffered. This is an adult taking advantage of position to rape a student. That is abhorrent.
I think it falls into within the spectrum of
everything amounts to abuse.
Whether there's a bullying,
it's abuse now.
It all comes under the. For me, this is abuse management.
Yes, management.
That's where I lump all of that into, because in the last couple of days, if you watch, the number of student casualty has been on the rise. The other day, well, you might not necessarily blame the school authority, but you've heard of the crashing of students by that truck guy. You hear the Dowen issue, you hear the Premier school thing,
all about school
and all of that. So I think this,
and then all the cases in the north.
exactly, it really brings to question the kind of attention we should be paying to our children in school, in and out of school. Because you might want to say, oh, the children when they were walking home when the talk happened, it could have happened anyhow. But I think if you revisit the whole incident of how that thing played, could we have done better as to provide a system where students do not necessarily have to be exposed to that kind of
trekking along the road?
These are questions that ought to be asked. In other clients, this should be a time for people.
This is a tall order because why is that? You see, one went to school, okay? One went
because at the end of the day, if the school authority had the provision for a very transport system, they could make a
private school. I think that school was a public school.
That's what I'm saying. They could make a case to the state to ensure things are done differently. That's the point.
I know private schools provide for that.
I went to a public school as well. I had to walk. In fact, what those kids had to go through, we crossed major roads, expressways, to and from school almost every day. You know how many students were killed in my time in Lagos? So if when I went to school, we had that kind of, and now we are still having this kind of issue. Isn't it time things change?
Well,
because it is the future of the country we are looking at.
Yeah. Before we continue, Chibuzo, let's just quickly take a short break. And of course, it's expected that we will be getting some feedback from our viewers because they too must have to contribute to shape the conversation on a big issue. And we urge our viewer to contribute constructively to the big issue of the day by way of comment. And it's expected that by the time we come back, see them trickling in. Don't go offline. We'll be back in a moment.
For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last word.
The Big Issue. Breaking down the issues that matter.
Welcome back. We are still on the big issue, and of course, the big issue of the day is the late Sylvester Oromoni and the consequence of school bullying. Well, the death of Master Sylvester Oromoni Junior has also thrown a debate as to whether boarding schools should be abolished or not, in order to curtail school bullying. Since the school authorities, the teachers, principal cannot guarantee the safety of the students. You see, the idea is that if you have a school, then there should be measures put in place to guarantee the safety of children. And since this is not so in our boarding schools, then just like what you say, apart from the bullying itself, you see the issues of theft. Younger ones coming with their provisions, the next day they are left empty. Sometimes the ones who cannot talk for fear of being bullied the more again will be quiet, dying of hunger.
Yes,
The abolition of boarding school. That's what most Nigerians are calling for.
I think schools need to be more vigilant about the children that they should treat the children in their school as their own children. The problem is that many times teachers do not see the children the way they should see them as their own. Treat them with that's parental care.
Yes.
Because if a parent sees his child to the school, it means the welfare, the security, social security of that child, well-being, that everything they handled over to school manage. And school should know that this is a big responsibility, and they should dispatch that responsibility with everything. They should, unfortunately, since schools became what they have become now, everything has been about profit making, not just about building, building the future of the country, the future, the youth that will be the leaders of tomorrow. So that has become a secondary matter to most of those who are going to invest in education. About this every year, schools a business that turns out to wire. It shouldn't be so. The problem is important to get to place, but more emphasis should be made to run a school that will produce children that everybody will be proud of.
No, it is not so in Nigeria, especially the private schools. The children.
Even the public schools,
they are more interested.
That's supposed to be monitored by education authorities of the state. Are they doing the monitoring? And just go hand an envelope and the supervisor go away. Safety is okay. Let me see. There are a lot of things to talk about education in Nigeria, and not today is still happening. So that as we have removed our pressure on a lot of things, and everything going wrong in every sector, that's how you also have education. Go to health, the same thing. Go to school, the same thing. Go to public utility, the same thing. So with education is so important because it's lives of these children and their future that is talked about. So I'm not saying that the boarding schools should be abolished. Those are those who are interested in running boarding schools should know what it is, whether they can manage it. If they can't manage it, they should make it a play school.
Well, after all, most Nigerians choose silence.
Let me try to play devil's advocate.
Before you come in there, let me see guide you again. You see, most of the mass abductions taking place in Nigeria is from schools. That is why most people are saying this boarding school self, they should abolish it. And then coupled with the fact that school authorities cannot even make the environment safe for children. So now, if you look at it holistically, you can imagine that, okay, see the Oromoni situation there. See, he was locked in a locker for 2 days. And of course, he was given a substance to drink. And all those things were happening. Nobody, not even a teacher, a schoolmaster, anybody could have identified that something was amiss. That is even the no reason why this idea of abolishing boarding schools.
Yeah, but as much as
it's coming up,
this kind of that act has happened, evil, if you will, has happened, I still do not think it's enough to say boarding schools should stop to exist. Even in day schools, but I don't have worse. That's the truth. In day schools, some day secondary schools, we have children joining cults already. We have cults already. Even as far back as when I went to school, we had inter-school clashes. And I think in one or two occasions in Lagos, we had some very serious injuries. So it's neither here nor there. I think it's about the moral societal fabric of the people at a particular time. Because the school, and that was where I wanted to chip in. If you go to most schools and interface with the school, particularly private schools, there's a culture of there's a we went when we went to school, public school. If you misbehave, there's a strong deterrent. They will whip you. There's a flogging that comes for misbehavior.
Another kind of punishment.
Another kind of
Cut grass,
punishment.
wash the toilet,
Exactly.
wash a lot of
So now there is a debate as to whether that was good enough to help as a deterrent or as a corrective measure or not. That debate is there. But now what we see is a pattern that tends to draw from what obtains in the US. Or the West, let me not be particular, the West, where they do not use how do I put it now?
corporal punishment.
punishment.
Physical punishment,
Corporal punishment.
physical, flogging,
That's
and all
corporal
of that.
punishment.
They use more of psychological things. They either give you extra work to do,
Confine you.
lock you up to a place, that kind of treatment. And funny enough, in most of the schools we have now, the question the challenge most of the school operators have is that if you touch a student or you try to discipline a student from a wealthy family, there's a problem because the parents of that child will come and begin to make
The case.
a case. So it puts them in a very tight spot as to how far they can go in trying to, and when they now consider that it's a business too, they see it first as a business.
Just like what Silas said.
Yes. So when you see it first as a business,
Especially the private school.
and unlike the other way,
After monetary pursuit.
it puts them in these private schools in a very tight spot. So I don't know how that this scenario has to be managed, but something I think has to be done about that. Because I want to assume that is part of the reasons why the school appeared unable to take the kind of actions it ought to have taken. Because these were children who were reported to, who they had reported on before, and still they continued with this behavior. So it's quite insightful to see why nothing happened to some much more stronger measures were taken. But of course, investigations are still ongoing, so we might never
Maybe,
know.
in all this way, we also need to hear from the school
Exactly.
what effort they made.
Exactly.
Because sometimes, this youth segment,
Arrest have been made.
this youth
Some of
segment
the
are
school
very,
staff.
very, very aggressive, very
Yes.
boisterous, very. So many times we are trying to. I work in the school at the time, and I know how and work with children in that age category, and I knew I was a young man then, very much young. I was just like maybe older than them. First out to invest, so I had the energy, to pursue them everywhere. All the elderly teachers, but I was very young, so I had energy to face them down and even face their parents down. So I know how much I did when I was, but I'm not saying that I was protected because I worked in a school run by the SSS and the NIA time. So there was already a discipline environment there. So I was sure that even if I went out of the way to ensure discipline, that I could be protected. But in private schools, if you are working for them, the management will quickly dispatch you. If a parent complains, because they know how much the parent is paying, and they know they can always get another person to replace you.
And the funny thing is that most times those parents spend, because of the nature of their work and the kind of things the kind of hours they have to engage in at the office, they barely spend time with those kids.
Yes.
So the question now comes: who molds the child? Is the school supposed to be a dumping ground?
So I will bring you now to this point. Look at it. Let's look at the situation. Just like what Silas said, I too. I think that was when I was doing my youth service. In Lokoja, I was posted to teach SS2 and SS3 English, and to teach them literature in English. That Army Day Secondary School in Niger Barracks. Although there was some form of discipline because it was inside the barracks. But most of the children were children of very high public officers, like children of commissioner. I can remember Faith Opanachi, and then this other boy. The children, they were all commissioner. What is this boy's name? They were all commissioner. The commissioner's children. Some of them. I think we had one that the father was the secretary to state.
Okay.
So at the end, if you observe what some of these children do, they come with some characters. You see, some of these children come to learn this bullying from home too, because some of them have learned how their parents bully their domestic servants at home. They carry such attitude to school, and if the school authority cannot shape against such bullies, other innocent children are the victims. So now, who should be blamed? That is what throws the question, and see how complicated is it? The school now, both the school authority and the parents.
Yeah, so the first grooming a child is from the parents. There's one that's supposed to set the ethical standard. Yeah, how to live with parents, with other children in the society before the children go to the front of the school. And even in that, nobody goes to boarding kindergarten. You understand? So that's the time you use the children up.
In this era,
I don't know when it goes to boarding.
Then you have crutch and
you go, but the children I said boarding. You still come back.
It's not like boarding now
because you just stay there for a while. You carry them.
What time does the parent have to spend? No.
When you tell them in the morning, when you finish work, go and bring them. They spend the day to night with you. So
when you are already tired as a working parent, and you barely have time to
even
engage with them. Even the patients, even the skills.
It's not a boarding school. It's not a boarding school. It's a day school. So that's when you parents put down the rules of engagement with society, with parents, with relatives, with neighbors, So if they do that in growing up, they'll be checking whether the children are following those.
You know that in the UK, and in some other societies where the economy, because it's an economic thing too, at the risk of just bashing parents, it's an economic thing too. In the US and the UK, where you have an economy that is relatively more stable, we see parents resign their work to take care of their children, stay home moms, just to focus time and to stay with their children and help shape them.
Now you even see children.
Now,
Silas, you see that children are not even up to 1 year. They'll take them to crèche, abandon them there,
just to meet up,
so that they will meet up
to work. People come on the table.
Exactly.
So all this
it's a
second stuff.
Yes. And then you now have a situation where bullying in school is now associated with cultism. You see, the late Sylvester was said to have been battered he died by those criminals they call students in school because they wanted him to join their cult.
I think we should make this decision another day. This show of cultism, I think it's because it used to be university.
Nigerian society degenerated.
Now you have come down to the primary school.
Yes.
What would we?
That is the point. How can cultism be addressed in school?
We have to discuss it.
Especially in secondary school.
It's another topic for another day.
Well, that is the much we can take for today's edition of the big issue. And of course, the big issue today is very instructive. Parents should take care of their works in school and should be very mindful. And teachers should not only be there to teach in the classroom. I think the safety of the children too is very important. Well, I would like to thank our in-house analyst for a very good job here in addressing the big issue of the day. And of course, you are here for keeping tab with us. Join us same time tomorrow for another edition of the big issue. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you for watching. For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last word.